Now everybody's just trying to win. And because everybody's trying to win, you're going to see the best. Referees are going to let guys play. There's not going to be a lot of foul baiting. Trae Young's not in the playoffs. They lost. He needs to get out of Atlanta. Another conversation for another day. There is no more foul baiting. Now it's, hey, if you are a bucket getter, go get a bucket. If you're a defender, go get a stop. If you're a playmaker, go make a play. It's about to be a great NBA playoffs. This is the best time. Mid-April to early June I'm locked in. I love the first round for the sake of, every single series isn't necessarily going to be great in the first round, but, for the most part, you've got games every day. Guys are resting 2, maybe even 3 days between games, especially on those travel days where you got to go and you play the first 2 in one city and you got to go to the next 2 in the next city. So because of that, guys are rested and they're ready to play basketball. So I'm ready to watch it. I'm locked in. I'm going to get this posted. Today is Sunday. I'm going to get this posted before the games start, as we've got a lot of games today, a lot of games tomorrow, so that then I can sit back. I'll give you, I was gambling a little bit. I'll give you a little bit on what I gambled on as far as today's games, tomorrow's games, so Saturday's games, Sunday's games, and then series winners, as I put together a 7-leg parlay that we can talk about at the very end. I don't really want to talk about the play-in other than the fact that I hate it and I wish that it would go away. I actually heard Nick Wright on his podcast talk about the play-in was cool when the rules were you got to be within a certain amount of games of the 8 seed. But I don't like the fact that if the Memphis Grizzlies had a bad shooting night, they could have lost out on a playoff spot for the Dallas Mavericks when Memphis won 48 games. I don't like that. I don't like seeing the 37-win Miami Heat get in, even though, it's Atlanta who won 40 games, but so it is what it is. But, I don't like seeing that. If you're the 10 seed, but you won, I don't want to see the Bulls or the Heat in. They just don't need to be in, and the Heat are in. But it is what it is. So that's the plan. I don't want to get too much into that. I can give that kind of information and that kind of, we can have that debate at a different time. Shout out to anybody who's listening. Shout out to anybody who is subscribed. If you're not subscribed, go subscribe. If you are on the fence about it, then I'll help you with this episode. I'll help you get to that point where you're like, you know what? Let me subscribe. If you want to leave a review, great. I appreciate anybody who has, anyone who does. If you want to leave a comment, if you don't agree with anything I'm saying, by all means, let's have it out. If you do agree, by all means, shout me out in the comments. Those really, really help even more than people might recognize. So let's jump right into it, man. We've got 8 series from the playoffs. We got the Thunder and the Grizzlies, the 1 versus 8, the Nuggets versus Clippers, the 4 versus the 5, the Lakers versus Timberwolves, the 3 versus the 6, and then the Rockets versus the Warriors, the 2 versus the 7 in the West. In the East, we got your Cavaliers and your Heat. That's your 1 versus your 8 matchup. Pacers Bucks is your 4-5 matchup. Knicks Pistons is your 3-6 matchup. Celtics Magic is your 2-7 matchup. I'm going to go through each one of these. I'll give my prediction on where I think it's going to go with each one of these. Like I said, then we'll get into the gambling for the games today, the games tomorrow, and these series based on kind of how I feel. I'm still back and forth on the Pacers and the Bucks. So what I'm not really going to talk too much about is the Thunder and the Grizzlies. I think that this is a very, very simple. The Thunder are the best defensive team by every metric. They've got the MVP. I don't really care what you guys feel about the difference between Jokic and SGA. We know that SGA is the MVP, guys. It's really not that hard. We don't need to make it harder than it has to be. Jokic is playing great, and I get it. He's a center average and a triple-double. He's not the MVP. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is. And they're going to go beat the Grizzlies in 5. I honestly think it could be a sweep. The Grizzlies just can't shoot. They have guys who can make shots, Desmond Bane in particular, but they can't really shoot as a team. You can pack the paint. Zach Edey is huge, and young. And so with that being said, people are going to go right at his chest. I also think that Chet kind of, cancels him out a bit in the way that the Warriors didn't have anybody who could cancel him out where he was just dominating the boards. I don't think this is a particularly great matchup for the Grizzlies. I think that they can really load up on Ja, and I think he's going to be frustrated if his shot's not falling. Now, he's making shots, he's spreading the floor. When players that are that athletic, and me playing basketball, I've seen this before. Players who are super athletic, you have to respect their athleticism. And the second they start making shots, it becomes very, very difficult to defend, to where even though you can usually pack the paint, because they're making shots and you're just even a step or two further out to guard a guy like Ja, now he's blowing by you. And so even though you're packing the paint, threes are even more wide open. So a guy who was an average shooter becomes a little above average shooter. A guy who's a good shooter becomes a great shooter because they just have an extra 2 steps of space. So that's going to be key. I don't think that that's something that'll sustain over a 7-game series. I think that Ja's streaky. He'll probably have a game, which is why I think that the Thunder win in 5 and not 4. He'll probably have a game where he kind of goes nuts. He's going to go for 45. He's going to make 4 threes, 5, 6 threes. Who knows what celebration he'll do. And then that'll be that. So I think the Thunder are going to take care of business there. They've had a week off of rest. The Warriors had to play a grueling game against the Wizards. I mean, the Wizards against the Thunder. Oh my God. The Grizzlies had to play a grueling game against the Warriors. Then they had to turn around 3 days later and play the Mavericks. Now they get 1 day of rest, basically to travel all the way to Oklahoma City from Memphis to play the Thunder, who have been sitting there resting, watching. Yeah, give me the Thunder in 5. On to the Nuggets and the Clippers, which I think is the most interesting series. Well, one of the most interesting. It's the most interesting series, but it's that with the Pacers and the Bucks to me, and then the Pistons and Knicks. Those are the 3 most interesting. So the Nuggets and the Clippers. You know what? I'm going to skip that and come back to it because of how interesting it is. Lakers Timberwolves. Now remember, you had that face of the league stuff that came up a while back, and then you had it was Ant and all that stuff. So last year, the Timberwolves were the 3 seed. I believe it went OKC 1, Denver 2, Minnesota 3. And in that series, that was the one where Denver was down 2-0, lost both games at home, then was up 3-2, won the next 2 in Minnesota, and then won in Denver, lost game 6. And it was up 20 in the fourth quarter, or 20 in the third quarter in game 7, and lost. And that was when we all of a sudden decided, oh yeah, let's anoint Ant, right? And then Ant went and got the doors blew off of him by Luka in Dallas, and Dallas still decided we should trade Luka. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We all get it. Nico Harrison's out of there at some point. So now that we have tried to anoint Ant, the Timberwolves said, okay, we're going to trade Cat. Cat is a good fit for us as far as our team structure. He's not the best fit from a mentality standpoint. So they went and traded Cat for Julius Randle, in which I think that both teams, the record's not going to show it, but I do think that both teams got better. I think the Knicks are better with Cat than they were with Julius, and I think that the Timberwolves are better with Julius. I think Julius just fits better than they were with Cat. However, what they gain from Julius in a dog, mentality and versatility standpoint, especially on the defensive end, they lose in shooting. So once again, very similar to Memphis. Very similar to Memphis. Minnesota, I don't think that they are a great shooting team. I don't know what the numbers say, but I don't think they're the best shooting team. So you got the Lakers, who aren't the best defenders. Ant should average 35 in the series. Nobody there was there to stay in front of him, and there's nobody there to protect the rim. The problem is, if Ant's averaging 35, then that's fine. Because if he averages 45, that's fine. What you can't let happen is Jaden McDaniels gets 20. Or Nickeil Alexander-Walker gets 15. Is he still on the team? I don't even know. Or, Julius Randle also gets 24 and 12. Because this is the playoffs. Playoff Julius Randle is a real thing. So, if Julius Randle's shooting 38%, which is typical for him in the playoffs, then you're golden. And I don't think that the Timberwolves really pose a true threat to the Lakers. I think the Lakers offensively, Minnesota's got guys who can defend, but at the end of the day, we watched Luka tear him apart once. I think he'll tear them apart again. And you have LeBron, who's like, I can sit here and coast for 2.5, 3 quarters and be the best player on the court for the fourth if I have to. And I mean, you're going to try to put him, you don't want him guarding LeBron because you don't want him picking up fouls. He'll probably guard a lot of Austin Reeves. But I honestly think that Anthony Edwards needs to guard Luka the same way like a Jaylen Brown would guard Luka. That's the type of stuff to me where it's like, Luka, you're a little more athletic. You'll pick him up full court. You'll poke at the ball. You do this, that, in the third. Like Jaylen Brown he is the perfect guy. You're not going to stop him, but he's the perfect guy to make it tough, get some steals, and I think Ant can play that kind of defense when he wants to. So I would put Ant on Luka, especially in like we call clutch time, last 5 minutes type thing. Maybe not all game. You throw bigger bodies at him. You make sure that Ant's not picking up cheap fouls. But when he has one foul and there's 6 minutes left, and it's a 3-point game, I want Ant picking up Luka full court. Problem is, I need Ant so much on offense that I don't know, like, if that is worth it. You know what I'm saying? So, with that being said, on the flip side of it for LA, I just don't think they have an offense that can be stopped. And we knew that. We knew that when Luka was coming, that was what was going to happen. But, like, Austin Reeves can hoop. Austin Reeves can hoop. He's not just like Alex Caruso where because he's white, we're like, oh, no. Austin Reeves can hoop. And you have 3 guys who can be primary ball handlers. You got 3 guys who can play off the ball. I think Luka of the 3 is the worst one off the ball, but because the other 2 are just as fine on or off the ball, that's okay. You got Rui. You got guys who make shots, Rui and Dorian Finney-Smith. I really like the matchup here. The things they might fall short on aren't stuff that Minnesota can necessarily take advantage of. Minnesota's size advantage is a big man in Rudy Gobert who the Lakers are probably going to be able to play off the court because the Lakers can just go play a 5-out style of basketball. You're talking about LeBron, Luka, Reeves, Rui, and if you want, you could go real small and do Dorian Finney-Smith, in which you're 5 out. And that right there means that Rudy cannot protect the paint. And if he can't protect the paint, you now have to take him off the floor for a Naz Reid. And if you put Naz Reid in the game, okay, you have now killed your defensive prowess for offense. And I think that Naz Reid's going to have to play a lot for that very reason. But also, like, part of why Minnesota can play the defense they can play, part of the thing that makes rim protection so important in basketball is that it covers up so many flaws defensively. And especially if people start getting in foul trouble, it's going to be tough to have Rudy on the court because the Lakers are also at their best at that kind of small ball 5-out, which is when the Timberwolves are the most vulnerable. So I'm going to take the Lakers in 6. I don't think they're going to just blow them out, but I also don't think Minnesota really has anything for them. Give me the Lakers in 6. Rockets and Warriors, I think that's another one that's interesting as I'm trying to get the West closed out here. So the Warriors, of course, have championship pedigree. You got Jimmy Butler, who's carried the Heat to 2 finals. You got Steph, who's won 4. Draymond, who's won 4. Steph, finals MVP. They've been there. I think that the playoffs are, when we look at those young teams, there's kind of like a progression. Like, you don't win the first time. The Warriors had to get through the Clippers. The Thunder had to get through the Spurs and Lakers and all of them when it was KD, Durant. Kevin Durant, Russ, Harden, they had to get through the Spurs. Who else was super young? Oklahoma City last year. They had to get through Dallas, lost. And so now Houston, who, remember, last year they started out hot and they kind of wore down as the season went on. I think that Ime and them learned from that, and so they treated this season a little bit different. Who else was super young? The Celtics. We saw how many conference finals and whatever the Celtics were in when Brown and Tatum were all so young. You don't win your first time because the playoffs is a different animal. It is a completely different. This is why watching the product on TV feels like a completely different sport. Excuse me. It feels like a completely different sport. But it's also why, it's because when you're playing it, it's a completely different sport. And the Warriors are the type of team who can lose game one by 15 points, and it'll look like, oh, they're going to get blown out. And they're going to be like, yeah, this is part of the process. This is part of the playoffs. They are able to remember, keep the main thing the main thing. We got to win one here out of the two. We just got to win one. It doesn't matter how much we lose by in game one, has no bearing on game two, and so on and so forth. So with that being said, while I think that because Houston's problem, they don't have the best shooting either. Dylan Brooks, Fred VanVleet, guys who can make shots, Jalen Green who can make shots, make plays, but I don't know if they necessarily have, like, when these games get close. The Warriors are very similar to what Kansas City has been the last 2 years. They're not doing the explosive whatever anymore, blowing people out. They might get up 20, and you might come all the way back. But when you get in the last 3 minutes, they just are the best at the last 3 minutes. It's always the right play. And so when these games get close and refs aren't calling fouls, and you got these veterans and Steph and Draymond and Jimmy who have been here, done that before, that's where it gets tough. And I think that this Warriors team actually might win in 6, and I think they might win in 6 while losing game one. Like, I think that's exactly kind of the way this type of thing goes. They lose game one. They might lose it. Houston might win it by double digit, by 8, 9, 10 points. And everybody's going to be looking like, oh, Golden State's in trouble. And they're going to go win games 2, 3, and they'll probably go win games 2 and 3, or win game 2, lose game 3, but win game 4. But then they'll go win in Houston and then close it out in Golden State. They win in 6. Very similar to what they did with Boston in that championship. This screams to me Boston Celtics versus Golden State Warriors 2023 NBA championship, or 2022, whichever year that was. Boston went up 1-0. Golden State 1-1. Boston was up 2-1 and lost 4-2. Like that's exactly, because it's just like, it's going to wear down. Game 1 versus game 2 versus game 3. Every single game is its own nuance in and of itself, even though it's still the same sport and the same teams. So I think I got Warriors in 6 here. And then lastly, the Nuggets and the Clippers, man. I just don't know what to make of it. Jokic, man, is Jokic. And I think that alone means, hey, you're not about to just run him out the playoffs. But also, I don't know if what the Clippers are doing right now is a product of their schedule down the stretch, or if it is like, oh, we're getting that playoff Kawhi stuff. And James Harden. But here's the other thing. Playoff James Harden is also a real thing. So what are we talking about? Are we talking about James Harden, who just had 39, 10, and 7 in the single game against the Warriors? He's good to do that. Or are we going to talk about James Harden, who we've seen over and over again in the playoffs? The Clippers, it's funny, they let go of Paul George, kind of replaced that with like Chris Dunn and Derrick Jones Jr., and are kind of getting the same production for cheaper because they got guys who can defend. And I think combined, they're probably averaging right around what Paul George was averaging points-wise. So I think that while I was kind of like, what are you doing with the move? It was probably a pretty good front office move for them overall. And, of course, Paul George struggled this year with his health, and hopefully he can get back into good form moving forward, whether it's with the Sixers or with anybody else. But I've been back and forth. I think that Jokic is kind of the unstoppable force. I think that Zubac from LA is kind of one of the few centers who at least is big enough to handle. He might not have the footwork. He might not be savvy enough, but at least he's big enough. Most centers are too small because this game has been more about speed and space rather than it is about like strength. So Jokic, there's not a lot of centers that really can do anything with Jokic, like that Jackson Hayes or even the Chets. Like, it's like Embiid's really the only one, and he's never on the court. But otherwise, so Jokic is going to be unstoppable, and I think if he wants to average 35, he can, 40. He probably won't average 40. I'd just be very curious how the Clippers decide, are we going to let Jokic eat? Because Jamal Murray, because the key for the Nuggets is not so much Jokic. You know what you're going to get there. Michael Porter is going to be in the corner. He's either going to make shots that night or miss shots. He'll probably go get you 8, 9 rebounds. You know Aaron Gordon. I mean, you know what you're going to get from them. It's Jamal Murray. Because if you're getting Olympic Jamal Murray, we've seen that Jamal Murray is only good with Nikola Jokic. Jamal Murray on Canada was abysmal in the Olympics. He's back, but you've got Chris Dunn and Derrick Jones Jr. hounding him all game long. I think it's going to wear down. And I think I'm going to go Clippers in 7. Give me Clippers in 7, a tough one to then have to mess around and go play Oklahoma City with James Harden having to go all the way back, to his roots. So I'm going to take the Clippers in 7 on that one. So just to recap, Thunder in 5, Clippers in 7, Lakers in 6, and I think I'm going to go Warriors in 6. Also, part of the reason I'm choosing the Warriors is because we got to see Warriors, Lakers, Steph, LeBron, at least for one more series. We don't know how many times. Like, anytime, I know that they're getting old, and I know that you guys have even heard me say before that we need to start prioritizing putting the new guard, putting the new people in the spotlight. But also, anytime I get a chance to get Steph and LeBron, I need that. So give me Lakers, Warriors round 2. So that's what I got for the West. Let's do these.